Hi, it's Terry Gaines. In this video, I am going to create 3 cards using the Oceanfront Stamp Set. It is available in Stampin' Up's January through June 2022 mini catalog. I'm going to be using most of the images in the stamp set. So I already have the photopolymer stamps on clear blocks ready to use. The 3 cards are all going to use the same card sketch. For this card sketch, the card base size I'm going to use is 8.5 by 5.5, scored or folded in half at 4 1/4, and I'm going to have the card all 3 open, or the fold up on the top. All 3 of them will have the pool party card base, a pool party layer that is 3.5 by 3, and then a basic white layer that is 3 1/4 by 2 3/4. And for all 3 cards, I'm going to stamp the images slightly different, and I'm going to embellish the cards differently. So first I'm going to stamp all of the images, and to do that, I am going to be using a variety of ink pad colors. I have Crumb Cake I'm going to use Pool Party, Old Olive, and that's going to be for the first one I stamp, and then for the next 2, I'm going to add Balmy Blue and Soft Suede. So I'm going to start out by putting my basic white cardstock on the piercing mat, and I'm going to stamp this image. Let me bring this in. I'm going to stamp this image with Pool Party ink. So I'm going to tap on my ink, and I just want it on the surface. I don't want to push so hard that I get it in the crevices. And I'm going to look for equal spacing on the top and the 2 sides. And it's not a solid design, so just ballpark that. And I'm going to stamp that image first. Then what I'm going to do is take this image right here that is this one, and I'm going to stamp this in Crumb Cake. So I'm going to tap my ink on, and I'm going to stamp this first one right here. Now I don't have that same spacing on the bottom as I have on top, so I'm going to ink this up again, and I'm going to extend this a little bit more to have it a little bit closer to that edge. Then the last part that I'm going to embellish for this first card is this stamp here with the Old Olive ink. And because it's a darker color than these 2 I've already stamped, I'm going to stamp that right over and give enough time that it can absorb into the ink. So I just refresh that ink pad so it's nice and dark. So that is image number 1. So for this, or the card number, or one of the cards, let me say that. So the next one, I'm going to do slightly different. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. And in this case, I am going to also use Crumb Cake. So I'm going to look for equal spacing on the top and bottom, or the bottom and the 2 sides for where I first placed this one down. Then what I'm going to do is take this image again. I'm going to use Pool Party, place it right above that, and it's going to overlap a little bit. You're going to have some white space also, so that's all good. I have that image. Now what I want to do is extend this one a little bit higher. I don't want to use the same color, and also if I stamp over it like I did here, I'm going to get kind of a dividing line right in here. So what I did ahead of time was for example, let me close that one up. I'm going to bring Balmy Blue in, and what I did was I took this same image, inked it up in an ink pad color, and stamped on a Post-it note. And then took the Post-it note and cut along that top image. And here's what I got, is this Post-it note cutout that I can lay on top of this image to cover up that Pool Party color, and take the Balmy Blue ink. Now I can look for that spacing that I want closer to the top. And this will represent like a sky, and this will represent the water. So I got two different colors there. So that's how I have this one so far. And then what I'm going to do is bring in this image and stamp with Old Olive right over about this area. And then I'm going to take this other, I first did this one, now I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to stamp that right here. So that's going to be my second scene. So for the third one, I don't need the balmy blue. I'm going to put that away. I am going to use the pool party, and I'm not going to be using crumb cake with this one. I'm going to bring in soft suede instead, a darker color. So for this one, I am going to start out a little bit different. I'm going to start out by stamping one of the rocks, the bigger, there's this one, boulder, a rock, and these two. I'm going to use these in soft suede. I'm going to stamp this first one because this is the one I want to be in the foreground. So I'm going to stamp that one. And then what I did was I also stamped it on a Post-it note, just like I did with the other one, cut around it. I'm going to place this one down right like so. Then I'm going to take the dual one, and stamp that right here. And that's going to appear in the back of this. I'm going to keep it on, and I'll reveal it as soon as I'm done stamping the other images. So now I also have a cutout for that. I'm going to cover this one up. Okay, now I'm going to take this image with the pool party. I'm going to stamp this up here. Again, looking for equal spacing on the sides and the top to kind of get that. Now I have all of this to fill in. What I'm going to do is fill that in with this image here. But instead of using the crumb cake like I did before, I'm going to use Old Olive. So I'm going to ink this up. I'm leaving these Post-it notes on there because I'm going to stamp this. And like so. And then before I take that off, I'm going to stamp some greenery here, and I'm going to stamp some greenery here. Now when I take these off, you can see that the boulders are like so. Now if you happen to get some white space like this, you can always bring in a blender pen. A blender pen has some clear liquid in there that it bleeds your ink. So then I just take and bleed that a little bit. If that happened with the green, I could do that also. As I mentioned, I just re-inked up my Old Olive ink pad so it's nice and bright for those colors. So that's how I've stamped these three different. So now let me show you a little bit more stamping that I'm going to do for two of the cards. I'm going to bring in the Gentle Wave background stamp. It's a big stamp that fits our largest clear block. But what I'm going to do is put it on the Stamparatus and use it this way. I love the Stamparatus for alignment, but I also love using it for the background stamps. So the Stamparatus comes with 2 plates in the base and 2 magnets. I like using this small grid paper that you can purchase, and I place that down. So what I did ahead of time was I have this in the right location. So what I did was I inked up, or I let me rephrase that. I placed the stamp down right on this, above the 2-inch mark right here. So you can see that 2-inch mark. I placed it down here, brought the plate down, picked up the stamp, and I did kind of look to make sure I had it on the grid line. Then I'm going to bring in my grid paper. There's 2 magnets. I put painter's tape on mine to create handles. You do want to keep them apart from each other because they are very strong and they are going to collide if they get too close together. So I have my grid paper down. Now what I'm going to do is take my Pool Party ink, tap it on this, and in reality I don't need to worry about the back part of the stamp because I'm not really going to be using that. I'm going to put some pressure down to stamp on my grid paper, and that's going to give me the alignment of knowing where the image or the stamp is on this piece. So as I mentioned, my card information is on the card base. I'm going to add another layer to this first card. I'm going to add a piece of Pool Party that I've cut down 1/8 of an inch on both sides, and I'm going to stamp that with this wave background. I'm going to place this along this edge. I'm going to look for a little bit of ink on the top, a little bit of ink on the bottom. I'm going to take my magnet and place it in this 2-inch mark because I know the stamp image is 2 inches and beyond. I'm going to ink up this stamp and bring it back down here. Put some pressure down on it. And there I have some waves on just the bottom portion. Now, if I'm making multiple cards, I can keep doing this until I clean this off and take the stamped image off. I want to share that we have available these Simply chamois, which are great for cleaning your stamps, especially stamps on the Stamparatus. It comes a full sheet. I cut mine in half, then I cut them again. You want to get them so they are moist. Put them underneath the faucet, and then you can just pick this up and clean that stamp. And that works great for all of your stamps. So I got that part done. And so we have this, we have our card base, we have this piece, and the first card I'm going to assemble, I'm going to use this. I'm going to add a little bit more detail to this card. For added layers, I have another piece of Pool Party that I cut to be, it would be 3 3/8 by 2 7/8, and I'm going to layer it on underneath here. For this one, what I did was I took my Pool Party ink, I took a sponge dauber, and I just daubed some ink on the edge so I could get a darker color underneath there, a darker, the lighter color here. So I'm not going to assemble all of these because I'm going to bring in my finished card. So this is the first card I made. I showed you how I stamped all of those. I added this layer here. I added 3 layers here. I popped these up with dimensionals. And for the sentiment, I like keeping these little strips so then I can stamp a sentiment on them, and then you can place your sentiment down. So that is card number 1 for my card sketch. For card number 2, I actually did the very same thing here. I stamped a basic white in with Pool Party ink for my layer. To add to this layer, I do have this image, or just the Pool Party, I'm sorry, that's going to go on here. And I failed to mention that I'm embellishing these with these pebbles, these enamel pebbles. I added 3 of them right here. For this one, I actually have the wrong one here. It's going to be this one. And for this one, for the sentiment, let me bring in the sentiment that I used. I forgot to mention that. For all 3 cards, I'm using the Best Year sentiment stamps. So the first one I used Happy Father's Day. The second one here, I'm using the Happy Birthday to You. I stamped this on a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to use the tailored tag punch to punch this out. And this is retiring. I checked before I started the video. It's currently available and it's reduced in price to $14.40. What I also did was I cut that out of that layer that's going to be hidden, because that's kind of a bonus to cut out any images because no one's going to know that. Then what I like to do is take this, cut it in half, take my adhesive, put it on the back of this sentiment image. Then you can add a layer of color by lining this up like this, and then taking this one and placing it here. And that can be the sentiment. And here's the finished card. I also took some of the linen thread, made a bow. I attached that with a mini glue dot. So here you have these images creating this card. So that's my card number 2. And my third card is going to be assembled with this image. And to do that, I'm going to add some dies into this. I'm going to use the dies that are in the Horizon dies on page 43 of the January through June 2022 mini catalog. And I'm going to also use a folder. So let's get to this card. We have our card base. These are the 3 that we're starting out with our card sketch, right? Let me bring that back in here. So our card sketch says we have a card base, and we have these 2 layers. What I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to add 2 more layers. I have crumb cake. I have my basic white that I texturized with the Tasteful Textile 3D folder. On my blog, I will have the actual dimensions of all these added layers that I have on here. And if you found me via YouTube, there'll be a direct link in my blog post, in the comments section of the video, to the blog post. So I'm also going to take crumb cake and put that layer in here. Now to decorate this, I'm bringing in those dies. I have the fence. There's 2 fence images. I'm going to place one on this side and one on this side. And to adhere those, I'm going to take the mini dimensionals, and I'm just going to take a half a dimensional and place it on the edge of each of these fence posts. So on my video, I'm not going to go through all of that, but I put half of one on here, and that allows me to attach just the fence post right here. Here you can see I've added the 3 stones here. I have some grass images here, and I have a little hello here. That's also from the same sentiment stamp. I want to show you what I did for the grass piece. The die is going to cut out this long image. What I did was I decided how much of this I wanted. So then I just followed one of the grass blades and trimmed it off. So I trimmed that one off to be like that the first time I did it. Then I realized that I didn't need to cut those images out, that I could just place my die on the side of my cardstock and just cut out as much as I wanted, and then trim off to make a clean cut on that. So that's going to save a little bit of cardstock too. And this one I even cut down a little bit more. So I have assembled this with dimensional just on that end fence post, and then these are attached with mini glue dots, and then this is with dimensionals, and that's attached. So these are the 3 cards that I made with the stamp set using this card sketch. I hope you found this, you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, please contact me. And as I mentioned on my blog post, I'll have all the added layered dimensions along with this card sketch that you can download and use. Thanks for stopping by. I would love to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the red box under the video, then select the red bell to be notified when I upload new videos. Take care and happy creating.